All right, it's me. It's Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, with this week's Outstanding Life podcast. And today in the studio with me, we have somebody I went to high school with, Brian Dalton. What is going on, my friend?
Not a whole lot. I'm really excited to be here. I haven't seen you in about 4 years.
I was going to say, the last time I saw you, I did a speaking gig for your school.
Yeah, you were kind enough to come out to see my students, and they had a great time with the message that you gave us, and it was great to experience. I hadn't seen you since 1989 up to that point. So,
hey, you didn't have to start leaving people years, and now they're like doing the math in their head, going, "How old are these guys?" Because on social media, I'm still 48 years old.
I'm not worried about the mileage.
Hey, so man, I asked you to come for a reason. One, you got a book coming out, and I'm super pumped to talk about that. But I want to know your story. After high school, you went off to college and you became a teacher.
Absolutely.
Is teaching something that you always wanted to do, or is teaching something that found you, or did you fall into it? Like, why did you want to become a school teacher?
I think it's a combination. In college, I'm not going to lie, the first couple of years, I just took classes, didn't really have a direction. And at that point, my guardian at the time said, well, let's look back at, your high school years. Let's go through your jobs. He goes, you were a camp counselor. I said, yep. He said, you were a kind of like a lifeguard safety guy with kids. And I said, yep. He says, you were an ump for kids' games in baseball. I said, yep. He goes, are you seeing a correlation here yet? And I said, not really. And he goes, well, let me narrow it down for you. He goes, every job that you've had in high school has dealt with working with kids and helping them become better at something, or to learn something, or to take care of them. Are you with me now? And I said, well, kinda. And he goes, teacher Brian, you would be great at teaching kids.
Yeah.
I said, okay. So anyway, then I had a goal. I had a focus in college, and I rocked out the degree. And I've
Did
been
you
doing
like
it.
school?
Did I like college?
Yeah.
I loved college.
You did?
Yeah.
Now, was it because of the partying, or was it because you liked school?
Just like you don't want people to know the age, we're gonna hold off on that. But so 24 years. This is like my 25th year coming up teaching. So
wow.
You could not do this job, especially with teenagers who I teach, if you didn't love it.
Yeah,
you would burn out.
So let me ask you this. I mean, so you go to college, you become a teacher. Do you remember that first year of being a teacher?
Vividly.
And was it as tough as I've heard that it is? Or I should say scary?
Well, I remember that it wasn't really scary, and I remember those kids, all 140 of them. Their faces are etched in my mind. I remember their names. But anyway, let me tell you, so you set your classroom up. We go in, we set our classroom up, and the first memory I have was some parents walking past my room as I'm setting my room up for the school year, and this one mom said, "My God, they're making them younger each and every year." And it took me a minute to take on what she was saying. I was like, "Huh, I don't think she thinks I'm going to be able to teach her kid." But anyway, that memory I take with me, and it's actually a fond memory that I have.
So you've been doing it for over 20 years. So did you get to a point that being a teacher was starting to get to you a little bit?
It's funny, and I even mention it in the book. I think it's in the foreword, actually, that I don't want anyone to misconstrue when I have struggles in teaching. It never ever is my kids. They're my babies.
Yeah.
Now you get into the outside world. I just think there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you got too many people that think they know.
It's political, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like anything else.
But they don't ask who needs to be. Ask the kids.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy about? Ask the teacher. Whoever has a vested interest and is in the scenario.
Yeah.
Ask them. Just do it.
So I remember in high school that you loved playing guitar.
Oh, I do. Yes.
So let me ask you this: did you ever lose the inspiration to play guitar?
Never.
Okay. Did you ever, take the guitar and I think of like teachers like in movies and stuff, and they would always do something a little bit different. And then all the other teachers would get pissed off, right? Because you were a little bit different. Have you ever brought your guitar into the class to help teach a lesson?
I do it every year and multiple times during
Really?
the year. Yeah, the kids love it. Let me tell you something about music I want to make sure I get out and why I use it, whether I'm playing or whether I use music from artists or bands that I admire and respect. I don't care what you believe in, but whatever grand design made us said that a beat was pretty dang important.
Right.
When that beat's gone, we're done.
Yeah.
And music can reach parts of our mind, our soul, whatnot, unlike anything else. It can lift your spirits. It can take you to other places. It affects very specific areas of your brain. And that's why music in any way, shape, or form that I can incorporate into my life or my students' lives or my own children's lives and my wife, I'm there. I love it.
Do you remember the first time you grabbed your guitar and said, "I'm taking my guitar to school today"?
Yeah, and I did, and I did, and I actually did. I did this thing where, if you don't mind, I'm going to share it with you. Is that all right?
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
All right. Let me grab my guitar.
All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that can't see what's going on right now, he is literally grabbing his guitar. It is an acoustic Fender.
We call her Baby Blue.
Baby Blue. All right.
So anyway. And I haven't tuned it or anything, but you'll get the point of it regardless. So I tell my students and anyone that, I'm talking to, whether I'm presenting or whatnot. In fact, this is one of the things that I often do. So let's pretend you're my students. And I'll say, you can go through life and you can play the notes. So, and those are fine. So you have, I have a D, G, or D, C, G. And those are all fine and dandy. You can do that. It just, to me, when I search for ways to teach my kids or how to raise my own children or when I go into a race or whatnot, I want to experience as much of what this life has to offer because we don't get a chance at a rerun. Right. Absolutely. All right. So you can go through life doing the notes and that's fine. But if you work together, if you work together as a class, if you work together as a family, if you work together with your elements when you're training, whether it's the water, the bike, running, whatever, take in what's around you. And all of a sudden, instead of going through life like that, and you bring in the notes that work with the chords, then all of a sudden you got something like, all of a sudden, the DCG turns into, well, I can't take credit for it. Obviously, it's a phenomenal song, More Than the Feeling by Boston. Right. But, that's the thing. It is a G, all of a sudden can turn into something like. And again, it's more beautiful. Yeah. It's more poetic. It's more, and that wasn't mine either. That's Silent Lucidity by Queensryche. Right. So just in case anyone, but that is how I try to experience this, short life that we have. I don't want just the notes. I want everything that I can experience with it. So instead of swimming and saying, crap, I'm in the water and this, I'm tired of swallowing seawater and I'm tired of getting kicked in the face or whatever. I'm like, I'm doing something in this beautiful setting that a lot of people would never think of doing, and I take it in. Right, and it's a beautiful experience, and I just happen to find life to be far more tolerable, enjoyable, and doable by doing so. So have the kids always enjoyed you bringing the guitar? Oh yeah, they have. They, Mr. Dalton, Mr. D, play this. Do you know this song? Do you know this song? And if I don't, then I'll go home and I can figure it out pretty quick, and yeah, they get a kick out of it. Yeah. They especially like Sweet Home Alabama. What about other teachers? Now, do other teachers, they're like, oh man, can you play, teach me how to play guitar or what can I do? I mean, those that know who I am, there's people that are acquaintances and there's people that know the true you. If they know me, they realize it's just part of the gig. My classroom's known as, it's not anything you or I would ever remember. And I bet you most of your listeners would never have experienced a classroom like mine. So if you could put yourself with a Hollywood teacher, who would that be? Because in my mind, I'm thinking of Robin Williams, like something that like you would walk into and he would just be like, you never know what you're going to get and what you're going to learn that day in your class. But that's just the way that the feeling I'm getting. I would agree. Well, I'm definitely not the guy in Ferris Bueller. Not him. I would say, in fact, it's funny you bring that up. That's probably my most inspirational educational movie is Dead Poets Society. Okay. And the way he gets kids to want to extend and learn and think beyond, just fact recall. Fact recall to me are the notes.
Yep.
Think higher, think of what, the bigger picture and so forth. And then kind of like when I was playing those two little songs, it's just a more, I think, fulfilling experience, educationally, and the kids enjoy it more. They what you and I may remember or may not, it was a lot of fact recall. It's a lot of regurgitation. It's a lot of remember this, to do this, to take the test, to move on, to do the next regurgitation session. But our kids today have too many stimulus options. They have entertainment at their fingertips 24/7.
Yeah. And
if you try to do that style of teaching, which I'm sure some do, and fine, do what you do.
Yep.
I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying, I look at my class as an assault on your senses. I use anything with,
and it probably changes all the time, right?
Does. I don't do anything the same.
Right.
So absolutely.
So okay. So you're a teacher, you play guitar, but then all of a sudden you had this crazy, and I mean crazy idea to start working out like crazy and starting to do Ironman competitions. Well, how in the heck did that come up?
Well, that memory is vivid as well. And my wife and I and our kids were up north about, 6 years ago or whatnot. And the first one wasn't really, I had done smaller triathlons, just because I said I was going to do it. And I did it. So I did about 30 of those prior to my big decision. So I told my wife, Cheryl, we're in the pool, the kids are swimming. I said, you know what? I'm going to go do the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon. And she goes, huh? I said, yeah. And she goes, why would you think that you could swim the San Francisco Bay? And I said, I don't know. I said, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
She says, you're crazy. And I told her, I said, well, you've been married to me long enough. When you tell me I'm crazy, that's when I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I did it. And it's probably one of the most beautiful memories I have, to be honest with you. Remember the notes we were talking about? We jumped off a boat at Alcatraz prison. Okay.
Yep, I've been there.
And I swam.
Not in prison, but I've been there.
Yeah, I hope not. And me either. But I swam for about 3 minutes and I rolled to my back. I'm not going to win the race anyway. I'm not a pro. I'm not there. It's not going to matter to me. And it's not. So I rolled to my back and I just let the current push me. And I was looking at the prison, and what a view.
From the water.
Oh my God. I mean, how many people can say? So I did that. And then I swam, probably about 25 minutes more. And I rolled to my back again. And then I looked up and I'm looking at the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And I mean, I'm sure some people say, well, you might not want to look like a sea lion up at the top of the water because they're, and regardless what people tell you, because they said, don't worry about sharks because they don't like the brackish water of the bay. All right. I'll tell your listeners right now, YouTube Alcatraz great white attack. And you tell me if they're sea lions people, they're going to be great whites.
Let me tell you, there's even a picture in your upcoming book that you took from your GoPro.
Mm-hmm. Well, the dorsal fin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, and I saw it again this morning when I was going through my notes, knowing that you were going to be here. And I was like, there's no flipping way. And especially because it's Wednesday and I've been watching Shark Week for the last 3 days. There's no possible way. I mean, so now when you did this and you set that goal, did you let your students know as well as your family?
Well, that's what is important before you take on any endeavor. And I do allude to it in there is have a purpose.
Yeah.
And being a teacher, teachers by nature are givers. They want to help.
Yep.
It's just what you do. And I've always wanted to help kids in need. Kids that struggle, kids that are suffering really angers me. Mm-hmm. Disease, abuse, whatever the case may be. I don't like it. So my students and I, for that Alcatraz, we picked a charity together. And we raised money and we went out to the community and did some academic things.
Back up a second. I'm just picturing this with you. Like while you're telling the story, I'm in that story with you right now. What the heck did your students think when you said, "Hey, guess what? I'm gonna do this."
That's exactly what you said. They're like Mr. D. There's sharks and stuff, and I'm like, I know, and they say pretty much what my wife says. You're crazy.
Yeah.
And again, that's just more fuel to the fire.
Yeah. So was that your inspiration then? Not only your family, but now you're students that had your back.
Absolutely.
Hey, did you work out today, Mr. D? Hey, did you do that, Mr. D? How did you know what I mean? What was that the fuel that you needed to do this?
They were partially the fuel. They kept me honest, if that's the way. You know, are you getting your training in? We know that you're busy. Whatever. You got to make sure you get this in. And so yeah, they all helped. They were your team.
Yeah.
But we had a purpose together, and that I remember vividly. That charity we chose was something called Rett syndrome, which is a debilitating form of autism that only affects girls and really takes away their power of speech, their motor skills. And it's just heartbreaking to watch. And at
a young age?
Well, they're born healthy, and it's a few years later where cognitive development begins to stop or slow down. And we actually had 2 girls in our district whose families were around us that I reached out to because their daughters suffered from Rett syndrome.
Right.
So they would come in, meet my kids, and they would come to all of our events and whatnot. And we raised money, and in the end, I think after all that we've done through the Ironmans and all the racing, we've raised over $20,000 for the charities that we've done.
Wow, that's awesome! Congratulations.
Well,
that's wonderful.
Well, it's important. It's always better to give.
Yep, absolutely.
First of all, secondly, what a learning experience for my students to see that one of the greatest things you can do with this time we have here is to help your fellow human being.
Absolutely.
And I think they learned more from that experience than anything they're going to learn in any of their classrooms.
So let's put this into perspective real quick, just because I didn't know how big this Ironman thing was. The run is 26.2 miles.
Yes, sir.
That's a full marathon.
Yes, sir.
That you had to get ready for.
Yes, sir.
But not only that, you had to swim 2.4 miles.
Yep.
And not only that, then you had to pick up a bike and bike 112 miles all in the same day.
In succession, yep. So, yeah.
Dude, so let's just talk a little bit about this. You go from teaching to now teaching yourself how to be disciplined, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because not only are you a father,
yes, sir,
you're a husband, you are a teacher,
mm-hmm.
you had to train.
Yeah.
So, and not only that, I mean, I know that we live in Michigan and we have Great Lakes, but the Great Lakes are a little bit different than the ocean.
Oh yeah.
So, but not only that, but where do you find time to run every day, bike every day? Like, take us through a little bit of your daily training when it comes to doing this.
Well, first, it's important to know, and this is for my life anyway, is I don't compare myself to anyone else. If you Googled Ironman training workouts, most of them you couldn't have a job or a family or whatnot to get the amount of hours in that supposedly you need. So I wouldn't suggest anyone follow my training routine because I can honestly tell you, I'm being dead honest. Prior to the Ironman, none of my the longest run workout I've ever done still to this day is 11 miles.
Come on.
Well, in the race, I'm on autopilot by then.
Yeah,
and once I'm running, I'm not going to stop. The swim, I taught myself to swim. I couldn't even do one length of a pool at your local Y until I started. And so I would go to our local college, Oakland University in my case, and I just swim and swim for hours and whatnot. And I taught myself and got better and better. And the bike's tough. The bike, I usually did one a week.
Okay.
And I'd tell my wife, who, bless her soul,
mm-hmm.
I'd say, hon, I'm going to be gone for probably about 5 hours. So
on a bike.
And those were always at the end, because as I do in Michigan, biking weather doesn't really start kicking in until about May.
Yep.
So I did long bikes, but only for those, because this last race was in July. So you're looking at me doing 50, 60, 70. I've never gone over 80 miles on a bike.
Wow.
For a workout. But like I said, when you're in the element, I figure if I can pedal 80, I'm going to go for 112. But when you look at it, like, Johnny, let's put it in perspective. A lot of times people make things harder than they are. And it's not rocket science. If I can swim a lap and I can float and whatnot, it's just jumping into a really big pool.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's San Francisco Bay, the Pacific Ocean, whatever. It's just a really big pool and you swim. A bike, since I had training wheels, I mean, once you learn how to pedal, you just pedal.
Yeah.
Just keep going. And running, I'm sure I figured that out when I was in diapers, and it's just going out for a little run. It just happens to be a little longer than what most would do.
Okay, so you have the workout routine.
Yep.
Not only that, But to do something like this, it's expensive. What I read is the bikes are expensive. The wetsuits, very expensive. The shoes are expensive. Did you have to learn the hard way what was a good bike? What was a good pair of shoes? What was a good wetsuit?
Well, the wetsuit, you make one investment. I bought it, how many years ago, and I've used it to this day. But ironically, if I don't have to use it, I don't. I don't like wearing a wetsuit because it constricts my breathing. It makes you float better, but at the cost of making it harder to breathe, at least for me. My bike, I call it it's a clunker. It's a Trek, and there's nothing wrong with Trek bikes. And you got to put this in perspective. I have guys. Remember, this is you're racing with common day men and women like myself, but the pros are there too.
Right.
There's bikes that pass me once, sometimes twice, that rival our trucks.
Yeah.
They're like 12 to 15 grand.
Yeah.
These bikes. But again, we're all going from point A to point B. I'm not winning this thing anyway, so I don't really care.
Yeah.
My shoes can hang with the best of them. I'll take my running shoes up against anyone. But, just don't overthink it. It's just an experience to enjoy.
Right. Do you remember when you crossed that finish line the first time that you did one?
Oh, my gosh. I have them both on video. They're both on my YouTube channel.
And what is it so people can find it?
Teach for Endurance.
Okay.
Yep. And my family's there. I'm talking Lake Placid now. So you're in Olympic Village. What a place with history.
I've been there,
You ever seen Miracle?
Yeah, I've been there. I ran with the Olympic torch.
Oh, yeah,
right over there on the wall.
That place is just filled with history. Okay.
Yeah.
So after about 14, 15 hours of racing, to put that in context, you and I could hop out right now, hop in the truck, and get to the Florida state line.
Right.
All right. So, and there's my family front and the Olympic circle there, and cheering me on, and I see him, I hear him calling me, and I stop, and we do it every time. I just get big hugs and kisses. We might take a selfie or two, and my God, it's the great. I got to tell you, beyond the birth of my 4 kids, those are my greatest memories.
Besides your family being there, okay, I know that people line the streets. Mm-hmm. There's got to be one story or one person that really sticks out that you're like, wow, that really inspired me. That person really was up there at the right place at the right time and said the right words to me. Does that am I making sense?
I remember him greatly.
Really?
It was the second route out. So you do at Lake Placid, you do 2 13-mile basically loops.
Okay.
Okay. And you've been to Lake Placid.
Yeah.
It's not flat.
Right.
And I'm coming back on that second time around. So at that point, I'm hitting about 20 miles or so. And there's this big hill. And there's this guy that's been out there all day dressed in a cape and like a Speedo and nothing else. And I got to this hill and I'm like, I don't got it anymore. And I started to walk, and that was a bad mistake. Mm-hmm. This guy comes running out into the street, and I won't say what he said, but basically he told me to get my butt moving. I didn't train all this time and been going all day this long to stop now. And he yelled at me.
Wow.
And he started jogging he says, let's go. And, so I did it, and I ran, and I remember him to this day. And he did. He lit a fire, man.
That was your angel that day, huh?
Well, an angel in a Speedo and a cape.
I love that. So, okay. So you have the people there inspiring you. And when I was going over my notes today for the podcast, I do a lot of NASCAR stuff.
Yes, sir.
And one of the biggest questions is that fans always want to know from a NASCAR driver. Those drivers are sometimes in that car or that truck for 3-4 hours long. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what happens if you drink too much that day? Mm-hmm. Water or whatever. Yeah. It means you have to go to the bathroom.
Yep.
And the number one question is, what happens when you have to go to the bathroom during a race? The answer is they just go.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Now, you are running 26.2 miles. Mm-hmm. You're swimming 2.4 miles, and you're biking 112 miles. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know about you, but I have not gone 16 hours in my life without going to the bathroom. I know this is crazy, and you're looking at me like I'm nuts, and yes, I'm going to ask because I know that everybody's thinking the exact same thing right now. Brian, what do you do when you have to go to the bathroom knowing that you're going to swim, you're going to bike, and you're going to run? Do you take one of the three? Because here's the thing. Okay, you may not win, but it comes down to seconds. Mm-hmm. And those seconds could beat your time,
Yeah.
or not beat your time.
Oh, I get it.
So what happens?
Honestly, and it depends. Obviously, the early, let's say my swim heat starts at 7 a.m. That morning, you know, I'm up already at 3:30, whatever, 4, getting ready for and going to get transition and stuff. I take care of business early because you got the butterflies, and so I take care of that then. Do some people when they hop in the water and start swimming? I'm sure there's plenty of potty breaks in the water. Let's just put, but. On the bike, there are aid stations, and there's some porta potties, but I can tell you honestly, and on the run too, I think each mile or so at Lake Placid, you have aid stations. So it's not like you can't go, but you're talking about seconds and whatnot. But I can tell you with the amount of calories that I'm burning and the amount that you sweat, I can't remember the last time I had to stop a bike or a run to go to the bathroom. And I'm being dead honest. Okay. I really am, because everything I take in, I'm expelling through sweat and whatnot. So I really don't have to go that often.
So what about eating then? Because again, I can't think of a time that I went 16 hours without at least nibbling on something.
Well, that's part that a lot of people don't talk about your training. You got to know what works for you. Don't, like, for example, I would not test new foods on the bike or on the run or whatever without knowing that they sit well in your stomach. Okay. So on the bike, I survived the first 56 point whatever miles with these gummy chews that I train with. And I know they set well. Yep. And I have my drinks, obviously. I have drinks that I've used a long time, and I enjoy those. But then here's the secret.
We're really going to tell me the secret?
Yes. My wife...
You're only telling me this because you know darn well that I'm not going to ever do this.
I know. My wife, after the first 56 miles or whatever on the bike, I go into this, like a little aid bag that I have on my bike, okay, where I keep the gummies and whatnot. And she makes me a half almond butter, peanut butter, and almond slivers and chocolate chip sandwich.
Okay.
Protein galore with a little nastiness of chocolate in there, just to let me know that everything's going to be okay. And I eat that, and that's all. And then until the run, that's all I need. So that takes me through the next 56.
Did she leave you a little note with that?
They always do. The kids do. I have notes.
Really? I was just going to be funny with you, but they really do.
No, they do. They leave me notes that are hidden where they know I'll find them at point, like in my they're called transition bags. Yep. So let's say I get off the bike and I go get my transition run bag. I open it up to get stuff out, and all of a sudden there's these cards or notes in there. Yeah. And that's really all I need.
That's cool. Hi, okay, there's hundreds and hundreds of men and women doing these, okay? How do you find your bike? Because, listen, there's only so many colors in the crayon box. So, I mean, do you do something different I guess this is the simplest way that I'm asking you, is like when I go get my luggage every single week that I'm gone, I do something a little bit different to my luggage so it sticks out, because I know that every other one's going to be black. Yeah. For you, what do you do to prepare yourself when you transfer from your swim to your bike ride? What do you do to know where your bike is so you're not flopping through everybody else's?
Oh, I'm a big fan of this simple little saying. So learn it, live it, love it. Plan your work and work your plan.
So are you telling me that because you found out the hard way?
I did. I've never not found my bike. First of all, you have to rack them very specifically. You have a number. Okay. So when you go that morning, let's say I get there at 4:35 in the morning, I find the row that I'm in. They're usually lettered, and then you have a row of a bunch of bikes. Absolutely. But I remember which direction it's going, because they all have to be racked a proper way. And then I might lay a towel down. Let's say I'll have my SpongeBob towel. Okay. So when I come out of the swim and I'm running,
SpongeBob, right?
I love SpongeBob.
Okay, that's what I thought you said.
I have a SpongeBob beach towel, and so when I'm running in, taking the wetsuit off, if that's the case, I'm looking I go to the letter, and then I look on the ground, and I'm looking for SpongeBob. It's a towel that not many people have at an Ironman, and that gets me to where I need to go. That's where I get to go.
So let's get back. Okay, so we're talking about the Ironman. We're talking about your kids. One cool thing that I saw, and I actually saw a picture of this, in your classroom, you have a huge bulletin board. Tell everybody what that is. And do you have the same bulletin board for every class for every year, or does it change up from year to year?
Well, in years past, obviously, been doing this for quite some time. You'd change your bulletin boards, blah, blah, blah. I only have one in my classrooms. Everyone's room is different. This board remains now because it's the first lesson on, when I meet my students, and I live by it, and I have my own kids live by it. And I'm sure you've seen on the bulletin board, my wife made me these 2 drawings on canvases of a song I love by Van Halen. It's called Right Now.
Okay.
All right. And then on there, I have all my medals and so forth. It's kind of like my glory be to me wall. But it's not, it's
Listen,
not what
it is all about you. I mean,
it's because I'm trying to show, when I tell my students and so forth, and I've already alluded to it with you, you only get one shot at this life.
Yeah.
I don't see a whole lot of point in worrying or regretting things that have already happened. And I don't see a whole lot of point in worrying or being concerned about things that may or may not come because you're not guaranteed it.
Right.
If you put all your energy into what is in front of you, the experience right now, your children, the race, the class of students that are looking at you wanting to learn something. If you immerse yourself in the right now, you see so much more and you experience so much more, and it's so much more fulfilling. It just is. So
being a father, a husband, a triathlon, a teacher, you now are going to be an author.
Yes,
I want to talk a little bit about that and then we're just going to talk about everything. But I want to make sure I get all this stuff in because one, I've got to read a lot of your chapters of the new book. And first of all, let me say this book that is coming out, it's a great read. It's a simple read. Yeah. It really, it's like you give a point, tell a story, give a point, tell a story. And this is going to be great for a I don't want to say young kid, but 10, 11, 12, all the way up to adults, because it's like several times I know that I sent you messages going, dude, I love your book. This is a great book. So after doing all this, where did you come up with the idea of saying, you know what, I got to put all this on paper?
Well, when we were talking about training, swimming is for me, you can have group swims, but I swim by myself. And if I'm swimming, for an hour, 2 hours, in some cases 3 hours, it's a very solitary, lonely experience. Right. And, but that's where most of my ideas in the book came up was while I'm swimming. These ideas came in my head. I'm always thinking about what I'm going to do in my class, my lesson plans, whatnot. And while I was swimming and I'm thinking about all the strategies I use to train and to race, I'm like, you know what? These are universal. These things that I do to survive these races are the same things that I've done to survive another endurance event, which is the academic school year.
Right.
And I started just, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and I started putting ideas together of basically analogies of how this correlates with my life as a teacher, or even in some cases, just life in general. You have things that are going to go easy for you, and you have times that are just going to crush your spirit. And I've learned all those things through racing, and I've experienced them in life and teaching. So basically, you're swimming, and was I just have to touch on this real quick? Was all your swimming done in a pool? Yep.
So you swam in a pool up until race time.
Yeah, I've never done an open water. I did one open water practice the day before Alcatraz. I met this wonderful gentleman that had his own little tugboat, and he would take you out to the prison. And he'd say, "Okay, jump." And you jump in, and he said, "I'm going to be way over there. I'll see you when you're ready." So I just swam circles around Alcatraz because I wanted to get a feel for that.
Yeah.
That is the only open water training session I've ever done.
So you didn't do this by the textbook, because most people would be going out to the rivers, going out to the lakes and everything else. So when you kicked things off, I just have one last question before we get back to the book, because I have friends that have done like the mini triathlons and stuff like that. And they said the swim, you literally get your butt kicked, like literally kicked in the face, and you can't get mad because people are all, you're just moving around that many people. Is that true?
Yeah, I call it, and I'm sure it's called the wash machine. So you got X amount of people trying to fit in to a specific space and trying to get any benefit they can, and most people like to try to stay close to the buoys. It helps you mark, helps you sight. As everything you've heard, I don't do anything normal. I actually go further away, and I'll take the extra length swimming for the peace of mind that I'm not going to be kicked in the, because I have been kicked in the face. I have been I've had a guy panic and hold me under the water. I've been through all of it.
Wow.
So it really isn't worth it like I said, I'm not going to win. So if I have to move far to the left and swim an extra 300 meters, whatever the case may be, I'm going to do it.
Okay. So you're in your swim. You're and it's this daily thing. And then all of a sudden you get this epiphany of wanting to write a book.
Yeah, it was the same. The epiphany, as you say, was the same thing that I told my wife. So I said, Cher, I'm going to write a book. And she says, huh? You're crazy. And again,
yeah.
So if you don't want me to do something, don't tell me that.
Right.
And so I did it. And I got to tell you, she's been my greatest supporter and my biggest critic.
Right.
She is, she's
Isn't that tough? When you have okay, me and you both are very artistic people. And it's tough when you put your heart into something and then the person that cares about you supposedly the most tells you something stinks.
She has been harsh, and this book would have been out a year ago had it not been for her critiques. I rewrote the end of every chapter because of her. Really? And it's a better book for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's tough though, isn't it?
Taking criticism is tough in any capacity.
Yeah.
But you got to go with it.
So how did you start writing the book? Is it, some people just start grabbing pieces of paper. Mm-hmm. Did you sit behind your computer? I mean, what was your format? Because I'm starting to notice a pattern with you, and you don't do things typical.
No. So let's say I did a swim workout and an idea came to me. The second I got home,
you'd write it down.
I'd write it down, just the idea, the big ideas and so forth. And then I would put that into, like you say, almost like a story format or whatnot. And that's how I did it. Or if I came up with an idea on the bike, the same thing. When I got home, I would, and it just kind of grew from there.
Talk about Feed the Shark.
Oh,
you talk about that right before chapter 3, I believe. And I don't know where it is now in the book, but you talk about, feeding the shark in you. And talk a little bit about that and why and how that came up.
Well, Feed the Shark I look at as I'm not judging anybody. Right. I'm just saying that sometimes you need to face your fears.
Absolutely.
And you might still be scared of whatever that fear is, but when you face it, it's such an accomplishment and an intrinsic motivation for you that you might be more apt to try other challenges or not be afraid to try something. Because as I said, you get one shot at this. And the last thing I'll tell you right now, regret lasts longer than fear.
Absolutely.
And the less regret I have within this life, the better off I think for me, I'm going to be for it.
Yeah.
So that's what Feed the Shark is, whether, don't be afraid necessarily to go against your comfort zone.
That's awesome. What did your kids think when you decided that you were going to write a book and then you told your kids? Were they pretty pumped for you?
Oh yeah. They're my biggest supporters along with my wife. And they just said, and they read chapters, they look at it, they give ideas, they have memories in it. They're in there. There's pictures of them in the book and so forth. So I couldn't do any of it without a good support system, and that they are my support.
So when you talk about the murky depths.
Oh, I love that.
No, so do I. Are you just talking about racing, or are you talking about life in general?
Big metaphor.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so
talk a little bit about that, because I love that title. When I saw that, that's the part that really got me, because in our lives, you have to surround yourself with good people. Otherwise, you're going to be dragged down to the bottom real quick. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like what I got out of that was like, hey, listen, you don't want to be there.
No. Well, the murky depths is from a racing perspective. Let's say you and I jump off the boat at Alcatraz. Well,
okay, I'll be in the boat. I'm going to watch you jump off the boat.
Okay. It's not clear. Okay. You're not going to see to the bottom. It's very murky. There's critters down there. There just is. Now, am I going to swim to the best of my capabilities, allowing my energy to be sucked away by fear and apprehension by what could or may not be below me?
Right.
It's not going to work. Okay. Fear, anger, all those are energy zappers. Yep. They will suck the life right out of you. So the murky depths in my life or school or whatever, I allude to the fact of what doesn't give me a return on my investment. What if I only want to be around people that make me feel good to be around them.
Right.
I don't have time in life for BS. I don't have time in life for fake people. I don't have time for any of that. I want people that I can lift up and that lift me up and I'm just happier for it. So that the murky depths, there's always going to be critters in our life, in your workplace or wherever, that are going to try to suck you down. I just refuse to go there.
Brian, who are some of the people in your life that motivates and inspires you? I mean, because you make a living motivating and inspiring our youth.
I'd say, well, my biggest motivator was my mom.
Okay.
You know, and she, you know, she passed away when I was in 8th grade. So, but she raised me while battling cancer from 2nd grade when she found out about the cancer until 8th grade. And she was a nurse. She worked hard. She never let it get to her. And she was the greatest mom. And the fact that she was able to do that and provide for me while suffering from, in that case, Hodgkin's disease, what a hero and the love of my life. So she's my greatest motivator. Today, obviously, you know, my wife motivates me to be a better person, but it's those 4 kids of mine. I will never, ever, ever let them see me quit when I say I'm going to do something, ever. And I hope when I'm gone, that helps to carry them through in their adulthood and their family lives and so forth.
That's awesome. I have to get back to the race and the transition of, what's up with I watched a couple of videos this morning. What's up with you athletes running with your bike and jumping on it?
Well, you already said it's all about seconds.
It's all about seconds. So is that it?
It's at Lake Placid, for example, you have,
I mean, what do they call that? The flying mount or something like that?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a name for it, but it's just you want to, get moving as fast as you can because you only get so imagine you trained for a year for a race. Well, at Lake Placid, you have until I could be wrong here, but I think it's around 4 p.m. If you've biked 103 miles,
right,
and you miss that cutoff, your day's done.
Oh,
they will take you off the course and say, we're sorry. And that's just what a deflating experience and heartbreaking. Luckily, I haven't endured that, but I've seen people get taken off the course. So anytime you can move, you better move.
Wow, that's crazy. You talk about purpose and stuff like that. With the new book coming out, you running these, triathlons, what's next for you?
I think, well, there were 2 on my mind. And again, my greatest critic and supporter, as we saw, the first was a 100-mile run, which is, I think it's called the Ultraman.
Okay.
And I'm still weighing that, but I think what I really want to do, because I love the water, I found a race called the Mighty Mac, which is you jump off a boat at St. Ignace and you swim 4 miles next to the Mackinac Bridge in our home state, all the way over to Mackinac City.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think that might be it.
That's just crazy. I mean, I'm still thinking about this. I mean, I don't really know what's inside your mind to race in something that takes over 15 hours to do. I mean, it still boggles my mind. Let me ask you this. What's tougher, teaching or preparing for a race?
Teaching. It's not a question. Not a question.
Do you listen to music? Does music inspire you? And are you allowed to listen to music during a triathlon? That's
tough. Training, yes, I listen.
Okay.
I do. I shouldn't. I should not be riding a bike with listening to music. I'm the first to say it. But and running and so forth. In a race, no, you cannot. It's a safety issue. It's a legal issue. But what's nice is, like you had seen in pictures, Lake Placid, for example, is a party. They're all parties when you get on the run. And there's people out in their front lawns with Metallica blasting.
Yeah, but everybody's partying but you guys.
Well, they offer you. They come out and they say, but I don't think a beer at that point is going to do me any good. But they're rocking. Yeah. So I do have on that run, there's music. But
okay. Have you ever wanted to grab a beer?
Not in a race, no. No.
I'm just curious.
Not at all. Would not go well.
But so let me ask you this. What's the best advice you've been given about teaching?
Oh, wow. I honestly, nothing's coming to me because I don't really think I was given anything like monumental. I'm sure some people over the years, especially in my early years, said some things in passing. But again, can I go back to that rocket science thing and not making things so difficult?
Yeah.
I don't really need advice necessarily, because in the end, I know in my mind the answer. Our kids, whether they're seniors in high school or they're kindergarten, want someone that loves them, cares for them, and wants the best for them. That's all they want. Learning is secondary. And that's how I look at it. It's not that difficult.
Right.
That's it.
So let me ask you this then. That leads right into my next question. What is your favorite, or what's a success story that sticks out the most about your teaching, years of, because listen, I mean, I can go back and I know that there are certain teachers that were really tough on me and I hated them, but I remember them because they motivated me to prove them wrong.
Okay.
There was others that motivated me to be the person that I am today, and they just taught different, but both of them still motivated me.
Yep.
Later on in life, you've been doing this long enough now where kids are adults now.
Absolutely.
And have, do you have one of those success stories that someone came back and said, Mr. D, thank you for everything?
I have, yeah, and I keep them all. I call them my emotional bank account.
Yeah.
I have letters, I have emails, I have cards, I have pictures, and I save them all. So I have tons of stories for all those. I've had kids that were going through difficult times, with home issues or substance issues, or even going away for some time. I've had, and I hear from tons of them, and I keep it all. And why it's important, in my opinion, that emotional bank account, because when that thing happens that ticks you off, or you have that bad day or whatever, I look back and to see if I have a healthy balance sheet. And the positives so far outweigh the once in a while that a negative arises. It just keeps things in perspective. It's not really that big a deal. So
how do you, as a teacher, now I'm going to put this question in increments here.
Okay.
When you have a bad day at school, how do you not take it home with you? Or is that something that you go work out first, then go home to your wife and children?
Honestly, it's all about to me perspective and the viewpoint. Do I get mad? Yeah, everyone gets mad.
Yeah.
But when I get home and the kids are there or whatnot, it's a real quick change because they need the best of me. So I've become an artist at the baggage drop, let's call it. I don't let I told you I don't have time for BS. None of us do. So
right.
I can honestly, does working out help? Absolutely. But I will not take home to my children anything from a negative realm that has come to me throughout the day. They don't deserve that. So
okay. But they can learn from it though, right?
Yeah. I've also had an opportunity to travel around the country doing things for technology, things for Microsoft and so forth. So I've met a lot of people that way.
Right.
So it just kind of came together.
Okay. So do you remember the first time that you got up and had to give a keynote speech, and how nerve-wracking was it for you?
Well, I don't even know if it would be considered at this point. I mean, there's different levels of keynotes. I've seen things that you've done that you have an auditorium filled, and I've seen smaller gigs and whatnot. I've never... It's hard to explain. I don't get nervous.
No?
Because I've been through I've been through so much.
Plus it's your story.
It's but helping is what we do.
Yep.
So it's just like I said, I don't overthink the swim or the bike or the run, and I'm not overthinking helping people.
So me and you have a little bit in common here when it comes to, because I'm the exact same way. When I say I'm going to do it, I just do it. I don't do things right. I just do it.
Yep.
And people are like, well, how did you pull it off? Because you're supposed to do this, this, and this, but you did it like that, that, and that. And I'm like, I put my mind to it and I just did it.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes people lack that motivation to believe in themselves. Would you agree?
Wholeheartedly.
Not saying that me and you are doing it right. We just do it different.
I don't do anything right. I'll tell you that now. But I have, I like to say, because I have all kinds of little things that I like to say to my students or just to anybody in passing, is drop the GPS and chart your own path.
There you go.
None of us have a straight line gig through this thing.
I love that. And I've heard a long time ago by this truck driver friend of mine. He said, every road leads somewhere.
You're right.
Think about that for a second. Every road leads somewhere. So stop being scared.
Absolutely.
And I thought about that and I was like, that man just taught me something so real. Like, stop being scared. Just do it.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. In a society that it's all about me, right now, right now, we all have bad days.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And me and you would be lying to everybody listening right now if you said, well, I don't have bad days. What do you do, Brian, Mr. D, when you have one of those days that life has got the best of you for a little while?
That's good. Well, again, I try to take perspective or a different viewpoint or whatnot. So let me say that if I have a rotten day or life has gotten the best of me, I remind myself first of what I do have. And if I got my 4 kids and a wife and they, love me, that's step 1. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there the perspective starts to shift. Do we have a roof over our heads? Do they have clothes? I mean, the basic that's when you break it down to the bare necessities of what really all we truly need, it brings things back in perspective. But I do want to share with you why it's important to have something to hold on to like that, whatever it might be. I don't care if it's a stuffed animal or it's a favorite song, whatever. Allowing yourself to keep getting sucked down is a black hole you'll never get out of.
Amen. Yeah.
Black holes are strong.
Yep.
And if you get sucked into one, you better get your butt out as quick as possible or it's going to get uglier. Mm-hmm. And that's just how I refuse to go down that path.
Yeah.
I'll have a crappy day. Trust me. I have plenty of them.
Right.
But I'm not going to allow whatever it was to dictate my course,
right?
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So just real quick, I want to make sure that people know how to follow you. So can you go through like your social media and stuff like that, so people know how to find you?
Well, the easiest way is Twitter, and it's just @TeachForEndurance, and it's the number 4. So teach, TEACH, then the number 4, and then endurance.
How did you come up with that? I mean, because that's pretty cool all by itself.
Well, it's kind of like with teaching, with life, with whatever, we endure every single day. Some things are easier to endure than other. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the endurance races that I do.
Yeah.
And I'm a teacher.
Yep.
So, I thought of it and trademarked it because it's like I'm teaching and living for the long haul.
Yeah.
Whatever time I'm given here, I'm going to get as much out of as I can.
So I know that you play covers. Mm-hmm. Do you ever write your own licks?
Oh, yeah. My, I don't want to date us, but you were actually back in high school. I wrote our class graduating song, and they all donated and sent me to a studio to record it.
Wow!
So I have
cool.
that. So that was the beginning. But yeah, on my podcast, even though it's not as nearly as cool as yours, each intro, I have an intro and an outro to each podcast. Those are all little gigs little licks that I've written and I've put together on GarageBand with nothing more than a guitar, a keyboard, and that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Brian Dalton, it has been an absolute pleasure to hang out with you, but I do have one last question for you.
Yes, sir.
And that is, I've asked this question a couple times on the podcast, and let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you leave here from the studio today and you stop and you buy a lottery ticket.
Okay.
You go home and tomorrow you found out that you won the lottery. You won the lottery.
Okay.
You won so much money that you would never be able to spend it all during your lifetime.
Okay.
Would your life change? What would you do?
Well, first I would probably keep working because otherwise I get bored easy, as you can tell. Obviously, the most important, I'd make sure that the kids it'd all go to them.
Right.
I mean, pretty much in the end. And definitely with, charities, I told you about how it hurts me to see kids.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would get a nice chunk, because if you look back, it's easy to say because I'm not going to win.
Well, but you don't know that, though.
I don't. Well, okay. Even if I won, I'm grounded in what's important to me, and because of my childhood and losing and I lost my dad at a young age too. So I basically raised myself.
Wow. Okay.
I'm so happy and blessed to have the family that I have. That's all I want. Honestly, and I already got my couple guitars. I'm good.
Right.
So, it might sound corny, but it's what gets me up in the morning is my family.
Yeah.
It truly is.
It's funny because I'm often asked the exact same question. People will throw it right back on me, and they're like, well, what would you do? What would you do? Mm-hmm. I said, my life wouldn't change. I like where I live.
Mm-hmm.
I like what I drive.
Yep.
My daughter's taken care of. Like, I wouldn't stop working. I wouldn't stop speaking. Because it's not work for me. It's what I live for every single day. I've been put on this earth to do one thing, and I'm doing it.
Absolutely.
Nobody can tell me anymore that I can't do it, because I am doing it.
And
I'm having fun doing it.
And you know what? Without purpose, you can be a gajillionaire without purpose, and you're going to get no meaning out of life.
Yeah.
Zero.
I'm going to let you wrap it up any way that you want. Maybe it's an inspirational story. Maybe it's somebody that inspired you. I'm going to let you take this last minute or two and end this podcast any way that you see fit, knowing that they just heard all about your life, or at least a little bit about this, that, the other thing. The floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you, sir. Honestly, it's not that difficult. My mom instilled in me what it was to unconditionally love something or someone, and to leave them better after they're gone. And even though she was taken far too early from me, those, up until May 18th of 8th grade, she taught me so much.
Yeah.
If I instill a sense of never giving up, of never quitting, and going for your dreams, don't let anyone tell you that you're insane. I may be, and that's fine.
Right.
But if I can instill that in my children, and they can instill that to their families when they're older, and those students that I have in front of me, in this crazy world that you alluded to, don't let anyone get in the way or tell you that you can't achieve what you want to achieve. Yeah. And that's it.
That's so true, too. Brian Dalton, it has been an absolute pleasure. And people can find you how again?
Easiest way I say would be Twitter, so that @TeachForEndurance.
Okay. Right. Well, I can't believe that it's, like I said, over an hour. I appreciate you bringing your baby blue.
Baby blue,
yeah. And hanging out with us and telling your story. And I can't wait for the book. Does the book have a title yet?
Teach for Endurance, Surviving the Swim, Bike, and Run in Today's Classroom.
Oh, nice. Okay. Awesome. Is it, so do you have the whole cover done and everything that?
My cover has a rubber ducky.
No kidding.
Yes, that was the thing I told the artist. It's got to have a rubber duck, and it does. So.
Nice. Well, hey, man, thanks again. I appreciate you. This is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. Don't forget to choose a platform to listen to this podcast, and you can choose that platform on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Player FM. And don't forget, now you can make donations to the podcast. If you like what you hear, you can donate to PayPal, or you can support on Patreon, and you can go right to motivationalcowboy.com, which is my website. And again, if you're looking for a motivational speaker for your next event or gig, don't forget to check out motivationalcowboy.com. This is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, telling you, be safe, have fun, and have yourselves an outstanding day. We'll see you next time on the Outstanding Life Podcast.
Outstanding Life is a Soul Bridge Studio production.